We are back coming off of another hot week in the markets. We have crypto seeing a little bit of a pullback with the exception of some really nasty shit coins. Otherwise, it's going to be an exciting week ahead. As we get going, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel. Nothing we say is financial advice. Kevin and I are not financial advisors. We're a few guys who love following the markets, nerding out around the macro. So please do all of your own research with any buying and selling decisions. Kev, you and I are both on the road, headed home today, but money never sleeps, buddy. It was an interesting week last week in the markets. We saw JP Morgan come in with some very strong earnings data that helped prop the markets up a little bit on Friday. You've seen crypto begin to pull back as the week begins, with the exception of Dogecoin and some other, I guess you can call them shit coins, if you will. You know, I know of one called Pepe that has absolutely taken the internet by storm right now. But how are you doing, man? How are you feeling about the markets as we start another week?
I'm doing great. The markets are really in an interesting place, in my opinion. I think that, you know, everyone kind of expects that we're getting to a local top. Like, again, you brought up the shit coins. Not necessarily something that you want to see after, a 4-month move to the upside and you're completely overbought. That just sounds like, okay, let's just, drain everyone of the last bit of liquidity. And again, that's probably focusing more so on retail for that. But yeah, I definitely am seeing some weird stuff in the charts I want to talk a little bit about. Seeing some weird funding rates, but for the most part, I'm feeling very good. I think this is going to be a really interesting week. Hopefully, a lot less boring than it's been in the past few days.
Yeah, we saw quite a bit of data on the back half of last week. You know, we took a few days off from the show, but we saw PPI came in under expectation, so that provided a little bit of confidence. And then, like I said, we saw JP Morgan, Citi, a lot of these bigger banks came in and had strong data. Now, that was for Q1, and all the banking crisis stuff began right near the end of Q1. So we'll have to wait and see what Q2 looks like for them. There's still, still a bit of worry on my part, but we saw that the markets didn't go like crazy or anything with the new economic data. We don't have a ton of data coming out this week that I think is going to be massively important for the markets. You know, some stuff around trade, durable goods, a little bit of housing data. We have quite a few Fed presidents speaking once again, but there isn't anything really big until the following Friday. So I feel like this week for the markets, could be a little bit more movements based on technicals. Maybe we'll start to see some more earnings come in that impact it that way. But, not a ton on the economic data standpoint, which is, a breath of fresh air from the last few weeks.
Yeah, definitely. It should be hopefully a calmer week. But again, historically, not in the markets, but April 15th to like April 20th is like the worst dates in history. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do see some massive collapse or something like that. Again, that has nothing to do with the markets. That's just how things, the Titanic, Lincoln's assassination, bunch of stuff like that, all in the same week. But point is,
yes, it's tax day. Tomorrow we got tax day.
Why'd you
We're
remind
going to
me?
have, yeah. So tomorrow's tax day. We'll see, people, I've seen people in crypto, NFTs, all sorts of assets having to sell off for their tax bills. So maybe we see a little bit of buying as people reposition, post tax time. But it's going to be, it's going to be an interesting week, kind of based on what causes the market to shift, right?
Yeah.
Like, we don't have a ton of monumental news that we know of, but this could be one of those weeks where we expect nothing and shit just hits the fan. Who knows?
Yeah, again, you can't time anything, and we've been saying it for the longest. It's probably going to happen when we least expect it to. Uh,
Yep.
I don't necessarily think that we have much more room to the upside at least in terms of crypto. Maybe the stock market wants to push up a little bit further in May. That's very possible. But with crypto, I feel like, again, this is definitely a market where you have to keep your eyes open 24/7 because, if Asia wakes up one morning and says, I want to dump all my Bitcoin, well, then the market's going to bleed for everyone else when they wake up. So it'll be interesting to see. I think that we are getting close to a point where this can't go on for much longer. I think the BS is going to finally break, and then whoever decides to be the one to drop all their coins in the market is probably going to just cause a nasty drop. Maybe not to a new bottom right now, but definitely in negative PA price action for at least a few days, maybe even weeks.
Yeah. So looking at some of the earnings for this week, we have Tesla reporting Q1 earnings on Wednesday. We have Bank of America. We have a few different retail stocks. So nothing too huge. We got Netflix as well. It's going to be a pretty big one. Morgan Stanley. So there actually is quite a few bigger name stocks that are reporting this week. Boeing, American Express. So I think that's going to kind of be what drives things to an extent. Those never really, move the whole market the way that economic reports do. They'll move that sector a little bit, but that'll be one thing to keep an eye on. Let's look at some of the charts because, like I said at the top, we're probably looking at more things on the technical side that are going to be dictating the price of whether it's crypto or the stock market. So let's look at a few of those and kind of see what the charts are telling us about the week ahead.
Definitely. Let's pull up the DXY just because, that one's been really interesting lately. What we were talking about when I put out on Friday was DXY potentially putting in that double bottom, that W pattern. And it kind of looks like it is. As we can see, it came down here. That's the first leg up, retracement. And right now we've found support similarly how we found support back here in February of this year. So on the daily, looks like we are putting in that W pattern where it's just double bottom here. If we look at the weekly, this was the one that gave me a little bit more confirmation. Was we could see we have two similar wicks, one down here, rejection from this. We bounced off of it, and then again, another wick bounced right off of it. We're gonna have to see how this plays out, but we're in a good position on the weekly where we could stay, oversold for a period of time and still make that correction move to the upside. That could play out for months, as we've seen here, a few weeks here. But I'm not too concerned with the DXY right now. I think, especially going into the summer, the DXY is probably going to pull back. I mean, not pull back, but it'll probably, push up for a while. And again, that's anticipating OPEC cuts, affecting energy prices. That's probably the biggest one for me that I think is going to affect the price of the dollar. I think a lot of these other Forex currencies and stuff like that being swapped, that's affecting some of the price right now. But I think when push comes to shove, we might be in a position where maybe we're just spending too much and rates have to go higher. And if that's possible, then dollar's going to absolutely rip into the end of this bear market. And if you see it at, 122, so 21 points higher than where it is currently, I would not be surprised. It's very likely if it ends up, turning out that inflation spiking. So this is one you have to monitor, nonstop because this really does affect the price of all risk assets. The dollar goes down, risk assets go up. Maybe that's part of the reason why everything's been kind of going up in the crypto markets, at least. And, if dollar starts shooting up, then everything else is going to just start tanking. So right now, I think this is going to be really interesting to see how it affects risk assets. I think a lot of people are maybe split right now. I honestly think that there's tons of cash on the side, but also there's tons of people who are still in risk assets. So we'll see over the next few weeks, maybe a month or so, how that develops. But right now, dollar is looking pretty strong to me. I'm not going to tell you not worried. This still could retrace back to that 99 level. But again, I think that finding support here at what is that 100.845, that's a pretty good level of support. And you bounced off it, similar pattern. And I mean, you can't argue that this doesn't look like a W. This is 100% a double bottom as of right now. Could it change? Sure. But I'm actually really liking what I'm seeing here. It's a pretty good development on the chart.
Okay. Let's get into some of the crypto, unless you had any stocks you wanted to look at first before we jump into Bitcoin.
Yeah, let's go back actually to one stock that we were talking about a while ago. This is that Marsh McLennan. It's just one that I was, obviously I've been monitoring. And when we were talking about it, that was a few weeks back. That was like right here, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So March. So it's made a pretty good run up. I think it was like 161 when we were talking about it, and it's at 173. And it's still climbing. Overbought on the daily, 100%. If you look at the weekly, it's getting close to that overbought territory. And again, this thing is 100% trading in this parallel channel, and it's most likely going to reach the top of this up here. Now, what does this mean? Probably means that, we're in a pattern that's going to break to the downside at some point. You can't trade in these patterns forever without, some type of rejection or support being found. And this one has a huge gap between 143 and 118. So I definitely assume this one is going to be filled on the weekly. Could take some time, but I don't think that this one is by any means, any stretch of the imagination, going to keep going upwards in this channel forever. I think some of these stocks need a reality check, like similar to how we got it in COVID. But this is just one that, again, I look at this and it reminds me that the market is going to be absolutely tanked because, I mean, why is this stock still going up when we're at a point where everything else is down? I don't know. not everything now, but there's definitely been drops, like 20% drops in the market, and this one's barely even seen any volatility. It's been trading in that pattern for a good amount of time. And again, it's also in the service sector, consulting, all that stuff. So, people start losing jobs, they might have to cut back on budgets for certain companies. This thing's probably not going to see too much revenue going into 2023. So it'll be interesting, or 2024, my bad. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops. But this just seems like I'm not going to tell you to short it at all. It just seems like a stock that has a good amount of downside potential. It just no one's realized it yet, or no one's seen it yet. So just thoughts on that one, just an update. Okay. Let's get into the important stuff. Crypto. We were talking about Bitcoin, and we saw it go up to 31,000 exactly. For me, that doesn't scream manipulation, especially on Binance. But yeah, I'm being sarcastic. It's gonna be $31,000 to the dot. You can see it. It's really insane right here. But yeah, we've seen this entire move to the upside. We've been trading this parallel channel. We broke out of it. We went into this supply zone. This, again, something that we're talking about is major resistance. It's between this high of 32,319 and 28,809. So we're trading in here. We got to close. We wicked up yesterday to 30, or last week to 31,000. As we can see, we're starting the week off a little bit in red today. Not surprised by that. Again, we were seeing some really weird stuff happen with BTC, Bitcoin dominance, Ethereum. Obviously, Ethereum was pumping because of the upgrade last week. And, Bitcoin dominance obviously taking a back seat to it. But Bitcoin dominance has traced a pretty good amount. And when we look at this price at Bitcoin right now, we can see that the price is going up. The stochastic RSI on the weekly is extremely overbought. I actually think it was the highest it was in a long time. Like, let's see if I can pull this up. But last week, I believe it was like 198. Right here, it is, yep, 199 actually it was last week. And right now it's at 94, 98. So we've seen a bit of a retracement. Again, that's no surprise with, the red candle. We're down $800 this morning. But yeah, 199. That's extremely overbought on the weekly. That's a huge indicator that we've gotten close to at the top of a movement. It doesn't mean it has to go down instantly, no, but it does mean that we're getting close to the point where I don't think there's much more upside potential. And then we look at the volumes. The volumes are extremely low right now, which is that doesn't make sense. So that's bearish divergence, because if the price is pushing up, you would expect there to be more volume. And I don't know what it is, but I feel like a lot of this has been either pushed up because of the dollar dropping over the past few weeks. And also, I mean, even looking at this chart for Bitcoin, this is really insane. This green candle just shot straight up. We never went back and retested it. This one, very similar, shot straight up. I mean, we came back to this one support line right here. But it seems like very similar to what we talked about a long time ago on the old Flolio show, was these are market maker patterns. They go up, they find a little bit of support, they go up again, find a little bit of support. You just keep doing that to the point where, okay, now they do the same exact thing, but on the opposite side. And it's, just they're buying nonstop for people to buy into. They sell off a little bit, and then they push the price up again, sell off a little bit, and then they open up shorts right after they wipe everyone's shorts out by liquidating them to the upside, and then they just max short to the downside. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is what's going on with Bitcoin. It just seems like there's tons of manipulation with price. Are we in a manipulated market? 100%. Is there anything we could do about it? Not really. You kind of just have to play the game as is. And I think that this pattern is exhausted to the point where I don't think that there's much more it can go up, especially with how little volume there is. Like, retail's not really coming in as strong as people were hoping, but the price continues to be pushing up. There's also, I forget what it was. Maybe we'll talk about it tomorrow. I can't remember the exact number, but it was about volume, how it's different from where it was in the last bull market compared to where it is now. And the volume is like millions of coins shorter that people are trading on. So if we're really in a bull market and the price is shooting up that much, I would expect there to be more coins being, traded. And right now we're just seeing a lot less. So I'm not really buying this Bitcoin pump to the upside. I do think we are seeing tons of manipulation in the price. And again, I think that's unfortunate, because a lot of people who are getting bullish here are most likely going to be retail. And you kind of need retail to be holding if you want the price to go down, because they're not going to be able to, sustain that for very long periods of time. So that's what I'm seeing with Bitcoin. It's unfortunate, but, I wouldn't be surprised if we were going back to some of these levels that, on the opposite side. So if we come down maybe 24, trade a little bit, come back down 19. I think we are definitely coming back to 19 if we're looking at this on the macro view. But 22, 24 seems like that wouldn't be a crazy area to see us revisit in the near future. I would say maybe months. Not, I wouldn't. I mean, again, we went from 25 to 19 in a day from just one bank collapse. Anything could happen in this game, and I wouldn't be surprised if something happens like that over or going into the summer.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look back even further at FTX, like we've seen, there hasn't been anything big on the crypto exchange front recently. So God forbid something happens there, look out below. We have seen, I'm looking at some of the stuff right now, and Bitcoin is down on the day. ETH is down. Most other tokens are down as well, but like percentage wise, not as much. So it feels like the majors are kind of leading the charge on the way down, just like they were leading the charge on the way up the other day. Do we want to look at ETH? Do we want to look? One token, that's near and dear to my heart is Link. It had a nice run over the weekend, got up to $8.40. So pretty solid right there. We can take a look at that real quick as we begin to wrap the show up.
Ooh, voice crack. Wow.
Oh boy.
I'm 12 years old. Why is anyone listening to me? Yeah, Link doing some crazy shit here. Damn it, that was a bad voice crack. Wow. Yeah, but anyways, we're looking at this. This is on the weekly. Crazy chart. We've probably cleared some of this stuff up. Again, this is from when we were talking about it months ago, but it's trading sideways. I mean, if I just look at this on a macro, trading within two support and resistance levels, this 788 broke above it a little bit. I mean, we could adjust this to fit, but then also down here, this 553 level, it's just head ass, just trading between those ranges. But overbought on the weekly. Volumes, if you can see down here, are extremely low. Even though the price pumped up, it's an extremely low volume, and that's bearish divergence as price is going up. And let's see in the daily what's going on over there. Yeah, you're overbought on the daily. You broke above that little, support level. And this is what I was talking about, maybe, price being manipulated, because if you're pushing up again above this and you're extremely overbought and people are going long here, or their shorts are being tapped out because it's going, higher than they expect, most likely you're going to see some type of pullback or anything that's going to, hurt the most amount of people and driving the most amount of liquidity. So when I'm looking at Link, I think that's, with Bitcoin dominance going down, with ETH dominance kind of going up, which takes away from Bitcoin dominance, I think that this allowed Link and a bunch of other alts to push up. And there's also this thing where when we're in a bull market, people think that, all the money goes into Bitcoin. Bitcoin kind of takes its charge, then it's ETH's turn, and then everything just dumps into alts afterwards. And I think that's what a lot of people are thinking that this is maybe. For me, I think that could be a possible fake out. I think a lot of people are just happily taking advantage of this. And if you're able to take advantage of some of these alts pumping, God bless you. That's, that's the way the game plays. But I do think that there's a huge, fallacy, narrative that's going on, that we're in a bull market and, it's the time for alts. I don't think alts are going to do too well if, Bitcoin dominance is still at like 46% or higher. Again, ETH dominance is at 20%. Last time ETH dominance was pretty high, was very similar to Bitcoin right before it dropped back in June of 2022. And then it, went down a pretty good amount, and it dragged the entire market with it. I don't think there's anything to be bullish about, at least, like in the chart, not in the charts, but outside, maybe even in the charts. We're extremely overbought on some of these. Like, it's 809 right there. You can see on the daily, it's extremely overbought. Look at the weekly. Overbought. And then again, you're trading in a sideways channel. That's a continuation pattern. And then, man, my voice is cracking all morning. Continuation patterns are going to follow the way of the trend, and the trend prior to this was to the downside. So I wouldn't be surprised to finish this entire pattern off. We do go to the downside, and that goes across the board for pretty much all coins. That's what I'm seeing for Link. The one I do want to take a look at is Binance, BNB. And again, you brought up, FTX, and we haven't seen any contagion or any fallout from that since. But I saw some really weird stuff in the charts yesterday. So let me just share a different screen. We're going to look at some of the funding rates because they are pretty insane. So we're on CoinGlass right now. We're going to go down, and we can see the funding rates are all right here. I'm pointing to the screen like you can see my finger because I'm smart. But here we are. Bitcoin, obviously positive funding, all down. And then we see some of these coins that just have insane funding. Like, people are just going long on some of these. ARB has an insane rate right now. point 0, 0.0498, 0.05. And then on some exchange, you can see it's even higher. We looked down to Binance, which is actually came down a lot. So when I sent you that thing yesterday, Binance was at 0.05, and that's a huge, funding rate. And we saw the price just shooting up nonstop. And again, I'm looking at it. I'm looking at the charts, and it's extremely low volume for BNB. And we saw it.
So just once again, to recap it, with that level of funding rate, what story is that telling you about, where you think the direction of that coin would go based off of the funding rate?
It's usually the opposite. So
Okay.
that's how I trade. Again, if I see extremely negative funding, then I'm probably going to go long, just because the way it is, longs pay shorts when the funding is positive, meaning that they're usually the ones in profit at the time, and then shorts pay longs when the funding is negative. So
Okay.
then, longs are the ones who are getting paid by shorts because shorts are making money. But when I'm looking at this, and Binance was at 0.05, and I see across the board, it's pretty high, and everything else is fairly neutral. The price didn't move much for most coins yesterday. It was mainly Binance, Sol, and Doge that I think had like extremely high levels of funding rates. And that to me just seemed like, okay, those are three coins that have tons of contention around them. People thinking like, oh, they're manipulated a little bit. I'm like, yeah, okay, I could see that. But then also, when we're seeing some of these funding rates come in, and I'm looking at the whale watcher, and we're seeing that tons of BNB was burned over the weekend. I believe like close to $500 million worth of BNB, and the price is shooting up. I'm like, okay, maybe that's because they're cutting supply, and less supply, and the same similar amount of demand, that's going to drive the price up regardless. So that has me really cautious right now with BNB. I'm not necessarily, I'm not bullish on any coin right now, but when I look at that and I'm seeing, okay, the funding rates are extremely high. Maybe they're twapping, which is time weighted adjusted pricing, and they're just buying at levels where it's like not going to change the market too much. But then the price is just shooting up. Like I think it was up like $16 yesterday when everything else was fairly neutral. I don't know, man. It's for me, those funding rates are extremely high. We're seeing some weird stuff go on. I'm personally not, I'm not going to say Binance is going under, but I do think that since they do have 70% of the supply of BNB, I think they have a huge control over that market.
Oh, 100% they do.
And
Yeah.
that's extremely scary, because at the end of the day, maybe they know something that we don't. Maybe say Bitcoin or some of these other coins are going down, right? Maybe they're pushing the price up enough where they could drop it on the market and then just buy back in lower. I don't think that Binance is going to go out. Maybe they do. Maybe they go under, similar to FTX, or maybe the SEC just, cracks down on them, and Binance US is out of the, trading system for, US customers. But I do think that there's definitely a huge amount of caution to be had with Binance right now. And that BNB, what does BNB do other than eliminate trading fees? Like, it just lowers them, if anything. There's no actual utility. And Kevin O'Leary, for who he is, was actually right about that. So just having some caution around that. I'm keeping an eye on BNB like a hawk. That's probably the one I'm most interested by, because if they need liquidity and, they're willing to drop 70% of that on the market, I wouldn't be surprised.
All right. So let's wrap it up for the day with Doge.
Let's do it.
We've seen a big move with Doge. I'm wondering how much of this has to do with the SpaceX Starship rocket test. Are people thinking that there's going to be a Doge logo on the rocket or some shit, and that's why they're buying it? Which, if there was, that'd be hilarious, and that'd be right in step with what Elon does. So let's take a look at that. It's had a big move, took a nice big candle up this morning, and now it's been trading around this 9.5 cent mark.
Well, I didn't even see this. Again, this is why I'm glad you brought that up, because all right, let's get into the price action first. So we see this looks like a corrective pattern. However, this made a little bit of a lower low than this one. But if we're looking at this, that 50 and 200 right there look like they're very, like, extremely close. Like, what is this? That's 0.0893 cents. That's the 200 EMA where it's currently at, and that's 0.0918. So those are extremely close, those moving averages. I wouldn't be surprised if those cross. And again, no surprise that we're seeing a pump right now. Maybe that's because the news around Elon. But point is, when I'm looking at this, that's a perfect time for a lot of people, market makers. And again, Doge is definitely another coin that is owned by a huge amount. Like, most of the people that own it are, it's a small number of people, and it just have a massive supply. Again, there's tons of people who love the Doge and they're not going to sell it. They're going to hold on for forever. Maybe that's a perfect opportunity to sell to some people who they know, I don't know, are going to hold on to it, and the price will be sustained, and they're just going to trade it all the way down. But yeah, that looks terrible right there. That stochastic RSI is getting close to overbought. We see tons of volume that came in. Where is it? Fuck, wrong. There we go. Tons of volume right around here, but then the volume's kind of like tapered off. And then let's see. Yeah, let's check the daily, because this is really interesting. Again, why is Doge pumping? Why is a meme coin pumping right now? You can see that there's still some room to the upside on the daily. This 50 might cross the 200, which usually is a golden cross, which allows for a little bit more of a pump. But again, when I'm looking at that macro, those 50 and 200 are extremely close. I wouldn't be surprised if that does coincide with death cross, where this pumps because we did get the golden cross, but then we get the death cross on the weekly once once it starts to retrace a little bit. So with Doge, I wouldn't be surprised if we retest. I mean, honestly, we could retest anywhere between 10 cents to 10 and a half. I wouldn't be surprised if we even go to like 11. Do I think that's possible? Sure. Do I think it's likely? Depends on what the rest of the market does. Again, Bitcoin dominance is down a little bit, so it's allowing some alts to see some sunlight. And I don't think that's going to last very long, because I think that dominance across the entire crypto market cap is still going to be pretty much depleted. I'm seeing people who are extremely bullish on alts right now. But if we remember that chart that showed everything but Bitcoin and Ethereum, the total market cap of all altcoins, it's extremely close to just absolutely faltering. I could pull that up real quick when we get in on that, just because, again, I don't believe that we're in alt season. Might see a little bit of pump here and there, but when we look at this total market cap on the daily, a little bit of a golden cross there, but extremely overbought. And you can see the volumes have been coming down since this rise to the upside. That's divergence right there. Go to the weekly. Yeah, we're extremely overbought. The volumes are fairly low, which shows I don't think there's a ton of money left, to be dumped into these alts. And rejection here at the 50 with this overbought stochastic RSI on the weekly, you're probably just going to trade between here and the 200. And again, if you just allow this price to come down over the period of time, this 50 is just going to follow with it. And we're going to get the death cross. And if we look onto the side of us over here, there's tons of a gap to be filled from, what is that, 143 billion all the way to 286 billion or so. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's, absolute bear market low. We do fill that gap, and that kind of resets the entire game for alts and crypto. So it'll be really interesting to see. Doge definitely taking advantage of, Bitcoin dominance, like I said. But again, Doge only does well when Elon wants it to do well. It just seems how it goes. And are we in a manipulated market? I don't know. Ask Elon. But I think that's pretty telling of where we are right now. It seems like we're getting kind of toppy for a lot of things that shouldn't be, or don't have the fundamentals right now in a bear market to be pushing the price up. We're just kind of seeing people grasp at straws, hoping that there's a golden ticket somewhere along the way. So that's all I'm seeing for these. I'm not buying any of this bullshit. Sorry.
All right. I think that is a perfect note to end it on. So, Kevin, not buying any of the bullshit. We will be back tomorrow, everybody. Live show, 3 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be doing it from back in our home bases. Thank God. Looking forward to that. So thank you, everybody, for watching. If you have not yet, hit that like button. Subscribe to our channel for more content. Drop a comment. Share us out with anyone who will listen. We appreciate it greatly. So that's going to do it for today. We'll be back tomorrow, everybody. Have an awesome one.
Take care, everyone.